everybody, and welcome to a new episode of Indie Game Sauna. This week's game is a French point-and-click adventure game which actually has a French title that I'm going to say only once because I'm sure that I will mess it up. The game is called Chronique de Silencieux or something along those lines, but I'm going to refer it as Chronique from now on. What's it all about? Let's go and find out. I definitely have a soft spot for detective mysteries, so Chronique seemed to be certainly something that was exactly the kind of game that I would enjoy. In most parts it is, but in some parts not so much. It's a prime example of a title you'd love to love, but the game itself does its damnedest to break your heart. The game begins when our main character arrives at Bordeaux in search of his uncle. Right off the bat we learn that our uncle is in jail, so we need to start sniffing around so that we can get him out of there. We gather evidence, talk to people in hopes for clues, and most importantly, connect the dots, literally. The core gameplay feature of Chronique is deduction. You have to do your own research and conclusions based on that. It's the biggest strength of the game, but also its greatest downfall. You can link evidence on people, and getting it right will reveal more dialogue options, for example. You advance the story through the means of gathering evidence, linking it, and then presenting your conclusion, which in turn opens up new dialogue options, which lead to new evidence and new linkable material. Linking pieces of evidence together and making deductions based on that is really interesting, but on many occasions the game does fight you on this. I understand that as we are playing a game, there just can't be unlimited alternatives to these kinds of situations, but in many cases the game does require a rather specific solution, which is very easy to miss. The game is fortunately very logical, at least in the most parts, so gathering clues and connecting them to others is very fluent. The sense of progression is always present, and generally you have a good idea on what you're supposed to do next. The story takes place in 1960s France, and I rather enjoyed it. There are some grammar errors in the script, but nothing too major. The detective work and the gameplay that accompanies it connects to the story extremely well, and I'm really impressed by the fact that the gameplay does not feel one bit superficial. The game also looks really beautiful. The art direction reminds a lot of Tintin graphic novels, which probably isn't an accident. Graphics are accompanied with a soundtrack that has a distinct 60s vibe in it. The game nails audio-visual spot on. Chronique is set on an isometric perspective, which does create a set of problems. Moving the character is a chore in both mouse and keyboard. Because the perspective is locked, you need to press down two arrow keys to move the character in a straight path, and if you use a mouse, you better have your clicking fingers greased up. The camera is so close to the ground that you'll be constantly clicking in order to move from one place to another. The game was also riddled with bugs at launch. The developers have been ironing them out with a respectable pace, but during my playthrough the game did crash a couple of times, and there were a few softlocks as well. In conclusion, Chronique does have its moments, but they are unfortunately overshadowed with some technical issues and problems in the game's logic. Fortunately, these are things that can be fixed, and it seems that the developers are dedicated to patching up their creation. Chronique has a lot of promise, and the core idea is excellent. It's a shame that the execution is not quite on the par of the idea itself. It's a very decent detective game with great ideas for gameplay. If you can overlook the issues mentioned previously, it's definitely a title worth playing. Thanks again for watching. If you enjoy my content, please consider subscribing for this channel. It would mean a lot. I also have my own indie game in the works, a 2D point-and-click adventure game set in an infinite hotel. The game is called Hyperdrive In, and it's already on Steam, so you can go ahead and wish this the game right now. We also have a playable demo, so you can visit the infinite hotel well beforehand. All the relevant links can be found in the description, as well as a link to the Chronique's Steam page. But that's all for today. I see you guys again next week, but until then, bye bye!